Hello and welcome to Future Self Dreaming. My name is Carlos Kukulkan. Today I wish to elaborate on a concept known as the Shaman's Doorway. I was recently camping in Noosa Heads, which is a beautiful part of Australia on the Sunshine Coast of Queensland, when I visited the town of Yamundi and I found a book by Stephen Lansen titled The Shaman's Doorway, Opening the Mythic Imagination to Contemporary Consciousness. Lansen was a good friend of Joseph Campbell and also wrote Campbell's biography, Fire in the Mind. In my mid-20s, I had attended some men's workshops by the same title, The Shaman's Doorway, with a man named Deva Dorisha, and I figured this book had no doubt been an influence, so I decided that it would be wise to purchase it. I first got involved with Deva Dorisha due to one of my work colleagues undergoing a 7-year shamanic apprenticeship with him at the time. After studying the Flower of Life material, I had been talking to this work colleague about the concept of the Merkaba as an interdimensional space-time consciousness travelling vehicle, and he suggested I attend a workshop with Dorisha called the Infinity Circle. To attend this Infinity Circle, I was told that I first needed to experience some of the introductory workshops that they facilitated, which incorporated Stanislav Grof's holotropic breathwork. The Infinity Circle was essentially a group experience of interdimensional travel and is something that I'll share in another presentation. However, this was my first introduction to this man, Deva Dorisha, and in the following years was what led me to attend a couple of week-long men's gatherings with him known as the Shaman's Doorway. Dorisha and his partner Ashana had established the Centre for Human Transformation in the Yarra Valley outside of Melbourne. At this retreat, they ran workshops in men's and women's mysteries involving many methods and techniques, including breathwork, vision quests, bodywork, and shamanic ritual. They were amongst the few consciousness voyaging pioneers in Australia holding open a window into the mythic realms in the 1980s and beyond. I saw something of my future self in my encounters with this man Dorisha. In time, I discovered that his entry into the shamanic world had occurred in a similar manner to my own, which I have described in earlier presentations, but for Dorisha this occurred many years earlier, in fact the year I was born in 1976. He was atop one of the temples at Teotihuacan in Mexico and saw an Aztec man in full dress that nobody else could see. This was his calling into the world of shamanism, or what might be referred to as an opening. So what is this concept of the Shaman's Doorway? Shamanism is described by Lansen as man's basic creative response to the mythic dimension. The shaman has the ability to dream, imagine, and enter states of trance that access the apertures between the worlds and to contact a more causal level of existence. There has been a common societal belief in the presence of a supernatural dimension throughout history, and the shaman is a technician of the sacred, able to solve problems upon the symbolic plane of existence that affect the physical realm. Joseph Campbell pondered the origin of myth in the prologue to his book The Masks of God by asking, whence the force of these unsubstantial themes? As Stephen Lansen explores in his introduction to the book, men's earliest consciousness seems to have envisaged the presence of other worlds, other realms or dimensions that coexist next to this one. He states, mythic symbols and themes have in fact been so entwined with human doings that we are led almost to question whether the mundane reality our present beliefs picture is the same as has always been there. The great Celtic myth cycles, for example, show a bright world so close to this one that it was taken for granted that there were apertures in every hollow hill and points of power from which magical energy could be admitted from that world into this. The mythic realm is not something that should be simply relegated to past history and primitive societies. True myth is a living realm that is experienced through the psyche and when accessed, lives through you and manifests as actions in the world. Navigating the shamanic world is to traverse the realm of the psyche and the symbolic mythological world that resides within. The shaman's voyage into these other worlds was often done so on behalf of the tribe or community when the problems of the time necessitated such. However, although the shaman's actions affect society, his primary allegiance is to the supernatural dimension. At times, members of the society become familiar with the shaman's trance adventures, and they may ritualize these procedures, which later crystallize into beliefs, values, dogmas, and religions that no longer experientially access the mythical supernatural realms through ecstatic trance in the manner of the shaman, but rather enforce outdated procedures from earlier times. Although the origins of familiar cultural myths once emerged from the realm of imagination, over time these living myths may become a repeated form of lifeless dogma with no real power. These lifeless, ancient religious enactments form a cult or culture that becomes binding to members of that society, and ultimately comes times when these methods need to be outgrown and a new living myth enacted, necessitated by the times that we're dealing with. The living myth needs to be experienced. It is what Joseph Campbell described as the hero's journey. Jerome Bruner says, "When the myth no longer fits the internal plight of those who require them, the transition to newly created myths may take the form of a chaotic voyage to the interior. The certitudes of externalization are replaced by the anguish of the internal voyage." Lansen echoes this statement by writing, "The internal voyage, the plunge within, is the way of the shaman as opposed to that of the priest. The shaman is the prototype of the spiritual psychological adventurer. We are unhappy with our orthodoxies and ask for experience, even if it means, as Bruner says it, the anguish of the internal voyage." In my personal encounters with clients, it's a very common experience at this time for people to encounter a deep sense of meaninglessness to their lives. This is often an indication that they're out of touch with the mythic dimension and lost in the maya of cultural materialistic illusion. Re-establishing connection to this mythic realm within the psyche can inform an individual of a meaningful existence by accessing the unfolding patterns, symbols, and archetypes that their lives are intimately connected to. Future self-dreaming is my attempt to hold open this aperture into the mythic realm of our personal and collective consciousness by sharing my own stories, exploring with those who inspire me, and journeying those who feel called to work with me in private counseling or workshop settings. As I have described in previous and ongoing presentations, my own mythological dreaming is connected to that of the morning star and the serpent cult of Quetzalcoatl or Kukulkan. The morning star was described by the medicine man known as Black Elk as the star of understanding. As I have shared in numerous presentations, that myth continues to illuminate my own path of understanding. As always, I hope that this may be somewhat inspiring to you. Please hit the like button if you've enjoyed this material. You can follow Future Self Dreaming on YouTube, Instagram and Facebook. And for counselling sessions, please get in touch via the website futureselfdreaming.com in Lakesh.